Vain is the word of a philosopher who does not heal the suffering of man. For just as there is no profit in medicine if it does not expel the diseases of the body, so there is no profit in philosophy either if it does not expel the suffering of the mind." End quote. That's from Epicurus' Fragments on Philosophy, and it frames perfectly what this podcast aims to cover. My name's Kiana, and you're listening to the introductory episode of Will to Wisdom, a podcast exploring perspectives on living well. I began seriously diving into philosophy during my time at university. For many people, selecting the subject they study for their degree is a matter that they don't take lightly. In my case, however, I chose to study philosophy without too much consideration, after a teacher at school said they thought I might enjoy it. In the end, he was right. I really did enjoy it. At the time, though, I had very little idea what philosophy was. All I knew was that I liked to debate, and in fact spent much of the summer before starting university sharpening my debating skills by arguing with my mother about the abundant job prospects that await a philosophy graduate. In any case, if you had asked me back then what philosophy is all about, I'd have told you that it's to answer the grand questions in life. Does God exist? Do we have free will? What's the relationship between mind and matter? That kind of thing. Now, don't get me wrong, these are questions of great importance to philosophers, and though we'll touch on many of them here, the aim of this show is not really to examine them directly. Instead, I want to focus on an aspect of philosophy that has been somewhat forgotten lately. This aspect we might call practical philosophy. It aims to answer the question, what is a life lived well? The ancient Greek philosophers often spoke of a concept called Phronesis. A basic translation might be something along the lines of moral or practical wisdom. More specifically, phronesis is a type of wisdom relevant to practical action, implying both good judgment and excellence of character and habits. Each episode of Will to Wisdom will focus on a single perspective on what it is to live a good life. I'll mainly present ideas from philosophy, but I'll also draw from psychology, neuroscience, history, literature, and wherever else might provide some insight. My hope is that the podcast will be a resource for people interested in growing their body of phronetic wisdom. I think it would be useful here to expand a little bit on the distinction between knowledge and wisdom. To my mind, there's something internal to wisdom that knowledge doesn't hold. Becoming more knowledgeable involves learning more about the way the world is. You can achieve this by reading books or getting degrees or speaking with knowledgeable people. Becoming more wise, however, involves understanding what your place in the world is. To be wise is to have perspective and good judgment. It's a synthesis of knowledge and experience. As Einstein once said, wisdom is not a product of schooling, but of the lifelong attempt to acquire it. Now look, I hear you thinking, Kiana, with all due respect, what makes you so wise that you feel qualified enough to present ideas that are supposed to make us wiser? The truth is that nothing does. I'm not wise, and I fail almost daily at implementing the ideas that I'm going to present. But like everyone, I'm on a journey in life that I hope culminates in some sort of wisdom. This podcast is simply a platform for me to share some of the things that I learn along the way. This whole podcasting project has a dual purpose for me, and admittedly the first is purely selfish. I hope that by writing and recording this show, I'll end up organizing the ideas that I present more effectively in my mind. In doing so, I hope to have better success in implementing them in my own life. The second motivation for starting Will to Wisdom is that by sharing the ideas that I find useful, some of you may begin to make use of them yourselves. And if not, then you may at the very least find them interesting and worthy of discussion. In any case, I plan to explore what great thinkers through the ages have had to say about what it is to live well. Though philosophy itself did not begin in the Greco-Roman world, it's where we'll begin. The first episode of Will to Wisdom will discuss the Stoic idea of the Dichotomy of Control, how dividing the world into things you control and things you don't can help you to focus your attention on what really matters and to be unaffected by what doesn't. My hope is to release a new episode every 2 weeks. I mean, we'll see how that goes. Life does have a tendency to get in the way of my personal projects, but I will do my best. So keep your eye out for that first episode. It'll be available wherever it is that you get podcasts in the not too distant future. In the meantime, though, head over to willtowisdompod.com and check it out. It's still very much a work in progress. I've learned what a challenge web design really is. But on the page, you should be able to subscribe to my mailing list, where I'll keep you posted when every new episode is released. I'd really love for this podcast to become a springboard for discussion. So, to that end, willtowisdompod.com will contain a transcript of each episode, as well as links to further reading. I'm thinking about ways to incorporate a forum, but I'm not sure if hosting it on the website is the best idea. I think Reddit or Facebook might work better, but if you have any ideas, I'm definitely all ears. You can reach me directly with suggestions, admonitions, or even just to say hello by email at keyana@willtowisdompod.com. That's KEYANA @willtowisdompod.com. With that, all that's left to do is to thank you very much for listening, and I'll leave you with the quote from Epicurus' Fragments, with which we began the episode. Quote, "Vain is the word of a philosopher who does not heal the suffering of man. For just as there is no profit in medicine if it does not expel the diseases of the body, so there is no profit in philosophy either if it does not expel the suffering of the mind." End quote. We'll see you next time.